Hello my friends, and welcome to the Ranger Rob Country Living channel. Here we talk about homesteading, prepping, current news that affects homesteaders, hydroponics, raising animals, and country living. Is that enough? So first of all, I want to welcome all the new subscribers. We've had a lot of new subscribers. We really appreciate it. Today I want to talk about something a little sentimental, a little bit emotional, but in a good way. What I want to talk about is our parents, which if you got kids, would be their grandparents. And the subject would be how critical it is if you're lucky enough to still have your parents around, or even your grandparents. And the reason I say that is, I'll tell you my situation is, I lost my mother at 14 years old. And I lost my father when I was in my 20s. He did meet my grandkids, my kids, but they were very little. And the reason I bring this up is not to feel sorry or anything, but I want to give you my impression as opposed to people that may still have their grandparents around or their parents. And so imagine what it's like to get married and actually get married to a woman that my mother actually knew and really was fond of, and never got to see that wedding. What if your children that you had that came out great and educated and good families and stuff, that your mother never met? Imagine all the questions you would have about growing up, why my hair is curly, or why I might have red hair, or you know, what kind of health concerns I might have. Imagine what it'd be like not to ever be able to ask those questions. And of course, when I was young, I was a teenager, but didn't think about that stuff then. So I only know my mother through my teenage eyes, and they were really good memories. And as you get older, you know, your mom, my mother was an amazing woman, and my kids will never know what she was like, only through what I could tell her. And once again, I only saw that through the age of being 14 and under. And then losing my father at I think I was 24 or 5, something like that, or 26. And you know, he met my kids, and he met Sherry and really got fond of her. But as time goes on, it's like there's things that we've done through our lives, like I made achievements at the company I worked at that he was in also, and never saw those achievements. And now I'm not talking about you know, my faith and all that stuff. I know faith-wise they've seen it, but physically, my father was in the Air Force. Well, I don't know if it was actually called Air Force then. All his brothers were in the military and were in World War II. My father went through hard times, or really knew hard times, through his parents. So what I'm kind of saying, like, in today's conditions, which history replays itself, if you have the opportunity and you have your grandparents around, or your parents that have been through World War II, Korean War, Vietnam, any of those kind of things of history, been through recessions before, been through depressions, if it was your grandparents. Do you realize the knowledge you could gain from them to be prepared for history to replay itself? And when you talk to them, they'll say, yeah, it was hard, but almost every time I meet someone that's very old, and they didn't hate it, they actually were inspired by it. And then came up with some clever ways to get through hard times. And I'm telling you, if you've got that asset, that parent, that grandparent that's still around, how fortunate you are if you really think about it. I would suggest you sit down and ask them about the past. Record it on video. It's very easy to do. I'm doing what I'm doing right now. Just to have that time capsule, because it's going away. And luckily, Sherry's parents lived much older than mine, so I got to know her father really well, and we were actually pretty good friends. And so throughout the years, he saw my kids grow up to be adults. He owned this place. It kind of gives meaning to what we're doing here, because he was my friend and Sherry's father. And I know there's things like he'd laugh at because he would have never done it. And he can kind of just, and then there's things he did here that I'm going, what were you thinking? But it was still a friendly, nice thing. I don't know how to describe that. Now Sherry's mother is still around, and she very frail, and she's in assisted living, and we're her caregivers. And kind of explains how we got here and why we decided to buy the place and stuff like that. It's so cool to see Sherry be able to share the achievements that we've made with this homestead, and the achievements obviously with our kids and all that stuff. And Sherry's been given the honor or the reputation. If you wonder what I'm pressing down some molehills here. To be the caregiver and executor of her estate for the rest of the children. And it's quite an honor, actually, and quite a responsibility. And I can certainly see why her mother and father picked her, and that will be us, really, because they knew we would handle it. And when the time came, we were here and stepped up. And but the thing is, once again, we have this asset of knowledge that we can get from her mother still, and we do ask things like, how did they do things when times were tough? They didn't have a pot to piss in when they got married. They came out of Utah, and no, we're not Mormon. He was, she wasn't. Anyway, very interesting times back then. Interesting lifestyles. A lot of things that, when it comes to homesteading, even though they weren't considered homesteaders, they still did a lot of the basic things that all of us homesteaders are trying to regain as a skill, like canning, preserving food, making a dollar go a long ways, rationing, all those things. And so we've had many conversations with Sherry's parents about how they had to ration, how they were setting aside metal, and all these little things that they used to do during the war. And the thing is people don't believe it. They just don't believe it. But I'm telling you, if you watch old documentaries of back in World War I and II and all that stuff, and not only see what happened, but also see how it happened, you will see it today replaying itself. Same terminologies, same kind of issues, the same kind of thing about money and leaders and greed and power and all that stuff. It's the same story And your parents and your grandparents, if you are lucky enough to have them around, I highly recommend that you sit down with them and talk about what you're seeing today. Does it have any correlation to what happened 70 years ago, 50 years ago? Well, 70 years ago, really. Even more than that. 75 years? Anyway, I think you would gain, one is satisfaction knowing you'll live through it, and you will make it through. And they may teach you and give you some ideas what you need to do to prepare if history really replays itself. It won't play itself exactly the same, but the same issues, the same thing what people do, it's all the same. Whether there is internet around or not, there's still people with greed and power and want to conquer the other, and governments being corrupted. It replays itself over thousands of years. But getting back to the thing is if you have that asset of grandparents and parents, or you're a caregiver, or maybe you're working with older folks, it's not that they want to share. All you have to do is ask. And better yet, try to even get them on video and let them tell their stories and document it before we lose that knowledge. Because some of the things I'm doing on this homestead, they're laughing. They go, yeah, we used to do that, but we didn't have a tractor. We didn't have the tools that we have. We had to water our plants by hand, by bucket. So they did the same things, only I think it was a little harder for them. But they knew how to grow things. They knew how to store food and preserve food. They knew how to save money and be frugal. They had to. And they came out stronger people. So the moral to this video is, if you have your parents around, if you have your grandparents around, take another look at them and don't realize that they're not a burden. They've deserved to chill out and be happy and comfortable. And while they're around, tap their brains. Let them tell their stories. Let them share all the experiences they have. I guarantee you that you'll probably benefit from it. And if you could record it, let your kids have that data for the future, because they're going to need it. So guys, that's all I wanted to talk about in this video, is embrace your parents. Try to get along with your parents. Find a middle ground. And then tap their brains, because they've been through stuff. Even me and Sherry, we've been through stuff. We've been through 2 recessions, and we've had hardships. And my kids, I think, have learned from it and watched their parents go through hard times and good times. And they still think their parents are crazy. All I want to do is, when I die, I want Sherry to step up at the podium and go, "It was a hell of a ride, Rob." So with that note, guys, please take the time to like, subscribe, and share our videos all over the whole wide world. Isn't that tree pretty? And in the comments below, say hello. Tell me if you've really talked to your parents, or you're fortunate to have a grandparent around that may be in their 80s or 90s. And are you letting them tell their stories? I'd love to hear from you. So guys, have a great day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye now.
Our videos are made possible by Ranger Rob Poopy Bags, available at Amazon right now. Thank you very much for watching our video. Please take the time to like, subscribe, and share our videos all over the whole wide world. Thanks.